everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in with me today. It is Wednesday, so it is Old Testament time again. Now, my phone is about to die, but I want to record this video because I got a lot of stuff going on today and I probably won't be able to do it later. I'm going to get right into what I want to talk about so I can make sure I get it recorded. So, the scripture I want to talk about is 2 Kings chapter 2. Again, I'm in the Christian Standard Bible. That's the Bible I use right now. And I will put Jehovah where it says Lord. But just know, any of you out there who are wondering, I do not think that God's name is Jehovah. Whatever or whoever God is, I don't think that its name is Jehovah, okay? But I put that because I know Witnesses Bible say that and they believe that. So, 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 23 through 25. This is what it says. From there, Elisha went up to Bethel. As he was walking up the path, some small boys came out of the city. Oh, excuse me, you guys. There's a bug on my on my Bible. That's what happens when you sit outside. Okay, some small boys came out of the city and jeered at him, chanting, "Go up, Baldy! Go up, Baldy!" He turned around, looked at them, and cursed them in the name of Jehovah. Then 2 female bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the children. So I said through 25, but I didn't need to read 25. I just did 23 and 24. So this is crazy, isn't it? This is really crazy. These young boys were chanting or, teasing him about being bald. He cursed them, and they were attacked by 2 bears that killed 42 children. Now, obviously, this is crazy. And obviously, it really doesn't go with what Jesus said in Matthew 22, verse 40, where he talks about, excuse me, oh my gosh, sorry, it was fly or something, but it was like right in my ear. What sums up the law and the prophets? The 2 commandments. Y'all know this. To love Jehovah with your whole heart, mind, soul, whatever, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Those are the 2 commandments that supposedly sum up the whole law, right? Now, I know that this scripture is not something from the law, okay? But it is in the Old Testament, so it still deserves our examination. My question, first of all, is when we think about the law and we think about the things that were done back in those days that aren't done today, do those really go with the 2 commandments of love, and that's basically it? That's the foundation of everything? Like, would you consider this right here, this scripture, love? That Jehovah would have answered or allowed there be power in Elisha's hands for him to be able to curse the children and cause 2 bears to come and kill them for calling him Baldy? You really think that sounds like love? Now, that's not really why I wanted to bring this up. I wanted to bring it up and tie it into something else. Think about how scared witnesses are to question Jehovah's governing body. Jehovah's governing body. Or when I was young, we used to just say the faithful and discreet slave. Think about how scared we are for that, of that, and why we didn't do it. Yes, they used to tell us that they were God's channel and, all of that. But is that really why we were so afraid of questioning them or, going against them? What I want to submit to you today is that, no, that's not what it was. What it was the fact that they would use the Old Testament scriptures, such as this one, to try to convince you, to convince us that this is how Jehovah feels about people who speak against his prophets. Because you all know that when we would read a scripture like that, or that scripture, it would be tied into something that has to do with speaking against God's people that he puts in certain positions, whether it be the elders, faithful and discreet slave governing body, etc. Right? Now, the scripture I read last week was also a scripture that we would use in that manner. That was the scripture about Miriam and Aaron speaking against Moses. And we remember what happened. If you didn't see that video, I'll put a little suggestion right here. But what happened? Miriam was struck with leprosy for her part in speaking against Moses, what we would call murmuring. And isn't that a recent governing body or a broadcast that was put on jw.org recently about murmuring? And you see how they use that word murmuring, and then you look at something like this scripture with Miriam and Aaron murmuring against Moses. But my question is, how are you going to use the Old Testament to uphold your point? To try to convince people that Jehovah still feels this way, that he feels that if you just speak against his people, his people in, I don't want to say power, even though they are, but his people in certain, positions, if you speak against them, you deserve to be punished, like Miriam getting leprosy. You deserve to die, like the kids who are getting killed by the bears, right? This is serious. How are they convincing you guys or us? How did they do that? How did they do that? That's what they did. They used scriptures right here. Because in the New Testament, there's no scriptures like that. At the most, it's going to tell you something about respecting, the elders, or respecting the men in these positions. That's it. That's it. It also tells you to respect the superior authorities. That don't mean you can't disagree with the superior authorities, does it? Right? That don't mean you can't question their laws or whatever. Whatever. We don't. You know what I'm trying to say, though. Just simply respecting doesn't mean what they try to say when it comes to the elders and when it comes to the governing body. Hey everybody, sorry to interrupt the video. So going forward, if I do have something to correct or that I need to expand on, I'm probably going to do a little video insertion. Obviously, I'm recording this on another day, but I felt it important to insert right here. I just mentioned that the only thing in the New Testament about how to treat, the people in positions like the elders is to respect them. And also that the scriptures say to respect the superior authority. Well, I was wrong about that. When I speak, I talk off the top of my head. So yes, sometimes I do not remember all the scriptures, but I did want to correct that now. So a couple scriptures, I'm sure there are more, but a couple scriptures that I found was 1 Peter 5:5, which talks about to be in subjection of those taking the lead. And Hebrews 13:17 talks about being obedient. Romans 13, which is the one about the superior authorities, says to be in subjection. Okay, so it doesn't just say respect. Now, I still want to just reiterate this, though, you guys. Even though they say to be in subjection or to obey those who are taking the lead in the congregation, it does not say to obey or be in subjection without question. It doesn't say to just listen to everything, any and everything that they say, no matter what it is, no matter if it doesn't sound from a human standpoint, like that particular article that recently came out. So, yeah, there's nothing that says that you can't question. There's nothing that says you can't disagree. In fact, I thought it was quite interesting how in Romans 13, the response to God for people who stand up against the superior authorities actually seems harsher than the scriptures where it mentioned about how he is with his with the people taking the lead. So in Romans, it says that, you got to be in subjection, right? And then it says, whoever opposes the superior authorities has taken a stand against God. So that is deep. That's actually, more harsh than the other scriptures when it talks about how you should be about the men in position. So I find that quite interesting. But again, my whole entire point that I was making on this is just simply that the culture has been within the organization to make it to where questioning is the equivalent of disrespect, is the equivalent of not submitting. And so therefore people are afraid to do that. And the reason why I believe is because of these scriptures in the Old Testament, that talk about how God strikes down people who question or oppose his prophets or talk about his prophets, tease them, like the one with the two bears, the boy and the two bears, like I mentioned, and murmuring, like how Miriam and Aaron was against Moses. So those type of scriptures would be included with scriptures like this in the New Testament, but these scriptures in the New Testament don't say anything about a harsh punishment if you don't, or anything to that effect. So that whole culture is just simply because of those scriptures from the Old Testament. Now, I'm going to leave it at that so that you guys can go back to the regular video, but I just wanted to, correct myself on those things. All right, thanks for watching. But again, the Old Testament is what was used to push that particular mindset. And so even though we're not consciously thinking about that, that's what it is. That's where it comes from. Because you can think in the back of your mind, well, dang, this is how Jehovah used to handle them. He would kill them. He would strike somebody down for doing it. But he don't behave like that anymore. He doesn't do the stuff that is in the Old Testament anymore. Jesus changed all that, didn't he? According to the scripture. He made it to where love is everything, right? And just think about this. Those little boys who was just simply teasing Elisha by calling him Baldy didn't get any chance to repent. They didn't get anything brought to their attention to say, hey, y'all shouldn't be doing that. And they didn't, and they could have had a chance to say, oh, I'm sorry, right? They didn't get a chance for that. He just cursed them and the bear came and attacked him. If we really believe that this is what happened, okay? So you cannot tell me that Jehovah, according to what you believe, didn't change. It's a clear 180. So then you cannot continue to use the Old Testament to try to convince people that this is how Jehovah still feels, when he doesn't still feel the same on so many other things. Like we talked about in other videos, slavery, murder, genocide, child sacrifice, even though people try to dispute that in Judges, talking about Jephthah. We know that the scripture said Jephthah actually went through with the vow, so he did sacrifice his daughter. The witnesses added a scripture in there that wasn't actually in the in any other Bible. So that's a topic for another day. But in addition, there's many other things besides those things that he no longer stands for, right? Like incest. Remember when Lot's daughters slept with their dad in order to make sure the line, because there was no other men, they were living in a cave or something, and they said, we got to give them some wine so we can sleep with them. What kind of wine was that? That's another, I digress right there, but what kind of wine was that he didn't even know? 2 nights in a row, one daughter, and then the next day another daughter, and he didn't even know? That sounds crazy to me, but yeah. So is Jehovah okay with incest in our day? I know you don't think so, witnesses. I know you don't think so. What about, is he okay with people having multiple wives? Witnesses, I know you don't think so. Okay? So you have to stop making excuses for what we see in the Old Testament. Also, what we have to stop doing, and I'm saying we, trying to, just be more inclusive, even though I don't do this, have to stop having fear of God. according to the things that are in the Old Testament. Because when you really think about it, that's where the fear comes from. That's where it comes from. He was crazy back then. Phone is getting dark, you guys, because my battery is about to die. I told you it was low. So, yeah, I'm pretty much done. I don't really have much else to say on this topic, but hopefully this makes you think a little bit. There's no reason to be afraid of questioning those 8 men, okay? The way that they're telling you God feels is not the way God feels. If he felt that way in the past, which I'm not saying that he did, or that the creator, it did, I'm not saying that. But if that's what was felt, he doesn't feel that way anymore, according to the New Testament. There is patience, there is love, there is forgiveness. So go and do your research. And again, I would venture to tell you to research the Bible. Don't just research about witnesses and the religion aspect. Research the Bible. Okay? See where it actually came from. Take the time to do that. It's not what you think. It's not what you think. Once you actually pull back the veil, like I mentioned before, the Wizard of Oz analogy, you pull back that curtain and see that it's just a little man behind there pulling the strings. Where did we get this Bible from? Who gave it to us? Once you see what it really is, the fear is immediately gone. So I'm going to encourage you to do that, okay? But if you still believe in it, that's fine. Everybody has their own, beliefs, and I'm not trying to change anybody's, but I just want you to think about this when it comes to the Old Testament. You know that God has clearly changed. So stop letting what the Old Testament talks about God make you afraid now, okay? Because that is not even what Christianity or Jehovah's Witnesses are even based on. They're only based on the New Testament. And the Old Testament, just to say this one last thing, is only used when they are trying to point or, prove their point. That's it.